Carlos Sainz's future in Ferrari might be in trouble, and while many are wondering why, there is one obvious reason as to why Sainz could be out of Ferrari sooner rather than later. Although he managed to beat Leclerc in their first season together in 2021, 2022 has proven to be a decisive year as to who can withstand the pressure of a potential championship-winning car. And that's why in 2023, with the new team boss, Sainz could very well be gone. Carlos Sainz came into Ferrari as a replacement for Sebastian Vettel, and in 2021 he proved that he is truly the smooth operator that we all know him as. However, there were some poor performances in 2022, when Ferrari demonstrated in the first couple of races that they could be the championship-winning car if not for reliability and tactics blunders. This is when Sainz lost his groove to Leclerc, as Charles has risen to become the team's #1 driver. You might wonder, how is Leclerc the #1 when Sainz didn't let him go in Brazil and disobeyed team orders in Silverstone? On top of that, their finishes in 2022 weren't that different from each other for us to speculate that he could be gone. But in 2023, Ferrari is entering with a new team principal, one that implements quite a different philosophy compared to Matteo Binotto. Binotto always believed in the principle of fair and square driving, never labeling someone the #1 driver and always deciding based on the decision of the race. Compared to him, this is barely something that has crossed the mind of Frédéric Vasseur, the team principal of Ferrari, who said multiple times throughout his career that the fastest driver should always be prioritized, and that teams that won championships in the past always had a preferred driver. He cited Schumacher in Ferrari, Vettel in Red Bull, and Hamilton in Mercedes as examples, implying that if Ferrari were to beat Mercedes and Red Bull in 2023, they would need a #1 driver. One would think, why wouldn't Sainz be the #1 driver in this team? Well, for starters, he has shown to be not as competitive as Leclerc in 2022. True, he had his engine burned out in Austria and aquaplaned in Japan, with Leclerc winning the first and finishing third in the second racing event. On these two events alone, Sainz lost 40 points, and the total difference between Leclerc and him in the Drivers' Championship is 62 points. Still, this isn't something that popular newspapers in Italy believe, as they went to a very extreme extent with their views. But we'll get to that later on in this video. Let's see how can Sainz obtain the #1 role in the team first, an outcome that would be much easier said than done. So yes, Sainz can be competitive, and there is a possibility that, all things considered, he could be considered the #1 driver. However, Leclerc has a very close relationship with Frédéric Vasseur, who was his team principal back in Alfa Romeo in 2018. Vasseur had a huge impact on how Leclerc's career has developed, and the fact that he is a very close friend with Leclerc's manager, Nicolas Tot, only goes to show that Leclerc will be slightly pushed to be the leader in Ferrari from 2023 on. Still, Sainz isn't giving up on his dream of becoming the Maranello team's #1 driver. And now that the challenge has been presented to him, he realizes what he needs to do will not be easy, and he will have to put in the extra hours of work. After adding that Ferrari was just simply outperformed by Red Bull and Mercedes in the second half of the season, and adding that the teams know why this happened, Sainz further elaborated, "On my side, I want to start the season a lot stronger, a bit more like I finished this one. Being a better driver with more knowledge, and again with a lot more knowledge of this generation of cars, that should make me stronger next season." But even Carlos Sainz understands that there were lots of issues that needed to be fixed at Ferrari, and while he was able to capitalize on some of the tactical blunders that the team made, such as in Monaco, Silverstone, and Brazil throughout the sprint race, it's evident that he could have easily been on the receiving end of things as well. This has happened in France when the team decided to pit him, when it was obvious that he could have reached the P4 position without any significant trouble, after he passed Perez. This is why he spoke highly of the new boss, Frédéric Vasseur, adding that he will do well as the boss of the Maranello team, and no one should doubt his abilities to lead a team. Quote, "Whenever someone new arrives, he has extra motivation, wanting to do well for himself and for the team. You have to give him time to see how the team works, know what changes are needed. Ferrari is very big, and I know it will take time. It doesn't happen from one day to the next." End quote. Carlos obviously has high hopes for the new team principal, and how could he not, given that Binotto has likely fixed the reliability issues in his final days at Ferrari, and all Vasseur has to do now is assert dominance and proper leadership in the team. But while Sainz hopes that this will turn out to be a good outcome for him, rookie is in for a huge surprise. All indications point to Leclerc being named the #1 driver on the grid, simply because he has demonstrated that he can compete with Verstappen once he has a competitive car. True, we weren't able to see this many times in the 2022 season, with the first 2 races showing us a proper fight, and then Ferrari going into a freefall after the Australian GP, which was the 3rd race on the calendar. But they've been working on the 2023 version of the car very early, and it's evident that Leclerc had the upper hand compared to Sainz throughout the whole 2022 season. The Monegasque also discussed the new team principal, whom he had the honor of working under during his rookie season in Alfa Romeo in 2018, saying that they are currently doing a lot of work at the simulator and have been working extremely hard in the past year to try and understand what the weaknesses of the F175 were in order to be a better version of themselves for the next season. Quote, "Obviously, there's also Matthias still at the factory at the moment, working and trying to help the team to get ready for 2023. I believe that if the transition is done in the right way, we shouldn't suffer too much. This gives me the confidence that we'll have a competitive car for 2023. Quote, "What goes into the narrative that Leclerc will be the preferred driver for the 2023 season is the fact that he was the one who wasn't on good terms with Mattia Binotto. This means that he was probably the facilitator of the Swiss engineer's fate, and once the team started to go down this hill, there was no coming back. This could be why they brought in Vasseur, a man Leclerc worked under during his rookie year at Alfa Romeo, and with whom he has a close friendship, as confirmed by the Monegasque himself. Renowned newspapers like La Gazzetta dello Sport and Corriere dello Sport believe that Vasseur being appointed as the team principal means one thing, and one thing only, setting a clear hierarchy with Leclerc being appointed as the #1 driver. This is why Sainz could do very well out of Ferrari in the following year. And given the fact that he is a very good driver who can judge situations on the track perfectly well for himself, he is going to be a very well-wanted asset on the grid. Still, Gazzetta dello Sport wonders whether Leclerc has the ability to withstand the pressure of being the #1 driver on the grid, adding that it's a risky hypothesis to put him in charge and expect him to withstand everything that's going to come at him. These newspapers furthermore added that Sainz could be the first driver to join Audi in 2026, especially now that his father is racing for Audi and rallying. The team would look for a reliable and solid driver, which is exactly what the smooth operator is known as. But he wouldn't have a chance to win a championship in Audi as he does now in Ferrari, where he is having one of his best seasons. It will be interesting to see how Carlos Sainz will react to this. After all, he arrived in Maranello under the assumption that he could compete with Leclerc, something he has been able to do so far and has shown he is capable of doing so, wrote Corriere dello Sport. Obviously, a very hard period is ahead of Sainz, and whether he will be able to withstand the pressure of going against Leclerc or not, time will tell. He has the capacity and has shown previously that he can outperform the Monegasque. But times are very different now, and we could be in for a very interesting drivers mashup in Ferrari starting in March. What do you think will happen next with Ferrari and Sainz? Let us know in the comments below.